I take 15 pills a day, 105 a week, and 5,475 pills a year to be able to stand before you today. Hi, I'm Chloe, I'm 18, and I'm diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus. You might be wondering, what is an autoimmune chronic illness? In my definition, it's how my immune system fails to recognize some of my body cells as my own, ending up attacking them. Just how sometimes I don't recognize the person I become after being diagnosed and medicated. When I was a little kid, I got the nickname of Tomato because my face would turn bright red and I would heat up really easily. I would get these constant nosebleeds and my hair would be drenched in sweat. And I just thought this was because of the hot weather in the Philippines. However, when I turned 14, more prominent symptoms started to show up. I would wake up with blood in my mouth, my clothes would crease my skin, my bruises would stay black for weeks, and I would have constant migraines, difficulty breathing, and weaker joints. So I began going to the hospital to find out what was wrong with me. So the month after I turned 16, after 2 years of constant checkups, blood tests, and medication refills, I finally got the official diagnosis of systemic lupus erythematosus. I recall saying, okay, because I didn't really understand the impact of a chronic illness, and only later did I find out I had to be medicated and I had to be hospitalized to be monitored. Personally, my experience at the hospital is absolutely dreadful. They treated me more of an object. They relentlessly poked me with needles, attempting to extract 17 blood vials over the course of 2 days while I had to starve for an ultrasound. One time they tried to do the left side of inside of my elbow, then my right inside of my right elbow, then my right hand, because they were trying to extract blood from me, which wouldn't come out, and they just left me with a hollow response of, okay, let's try again later, as if my suffering meant nothing to them. And I also found myself constantly surrounded by doctors shining their torches at me up and down my body and having hushed conversations among themselves. I felt like a science experiment, not a person. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. On the third day, I started my medication course with steroids. I remember the nurse coming into my room, placing a cup on my table with 7 different types of medication, and leaving. She didn't tell me what it was, no explanation, and it felt like a smack in the face saying, deal with it, you're on your own. But then something clicked in my brain. At 4 in the morning, I just got up from my hospital bed and I just started dancing. I just danced this silly little dance because I realized it's not because of the bad things that happened to me, it's about how I will handle them. Because in a situation where I had no control at all, the only thing I could control is how I reacted. And through that experience, it actually taught me a lot about myself and who I am as a person. However, even leaving the hospital, the emotional toll still followed me. I still had to go back to the hospital. I still had to go back for the blood tests, the checkups, the medicine, all of that stuff. And every time I would go back, especially in the waiting room to collect my medication, it would be especially unwelcoming because I am usually the only teenager there, so I would be surrounded by elderly people looking at me with eyes of pity. They would just look at me like, oh, that poor girl, like she has nothing in her life, she has to come here in a few months. And in that moment, I constantly found myself comparing myself to my peers. Every moment spent at the hospital, I found myself thinking about all of the lost teenage years, memories, moments that I could have spent with my family, but I'm stuck, confined in the walls of the hospital, feeling the weight of time lost. However, through this roller coaster of emotions that tests my spirit, I continue to preserve. Every time I would go back, every few months, I would like walk in and I'll be like all snug, I'm like, yeah. And then I would get my bag dramatically, I would open it, I would get 7 different types of medication, like, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I would shake it. gently, but loud enough so that everyone in the waiting room can hear me. And then I would put it on my shoulder like this, so that you can still see how big the bag is, and I would just walk, and then in a way where like, you can still kind of hear the medication, like it'd be like, shh, shh, something like that, you know? And then it was my way of silently proclaiming, yeah, I take this much, and yeah, I can handle it. Throughout my daily life, there would still be struggles, because when I was dealing with academic stress, on top of major personal issues, on top of medical issues, I got really sick, because the stress and the sadness impacted my illness, and it exaggerated my symptoms. And there would be times where I'd spend days or even months in my room just locked away. So there would be times when my classmates wouldn't see me for months. During these moments of distress, I would be grappling with the idea of uncertainty, because when the symptoms started to pile up, I couldn't really distinguish what was causing it. Certain symptoms, like face swelling, dubbed as moon face in the community, you can connect it towards prednisone, which is a medicine to control lupus. This was like 1 month apart. At that time, I was taking a lot of prednisone with like high dosages, and it like made my face swell up. However, other symptoms, I had no idea what was causing it. Like my unexplainable mood swings with depressed moods, my inability to concentrate, brain fog, and the list goes on and on and on. And I didn't know if it was my illness, or it was because of the side effects of my medication, or is it because of my anxiety disorder? I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the root of my problem. So I didn't know how to solve it. And even if I knew it, I couldn't do anything. And I just like remember just choosing to suffer in silence, choosing to not open up to other people, because I didn't see the point of opening up, because I couldn't change anything. When I got diagnosed like during COVID before, I remember it so clearly. My room had beige walls, no windows, no family, no friends were allowed to see me because of COVID restrictions. And I faced the diagnosis on my own through the lockdown, since I was autoimmune compromised. I wasn't allowed to go out to see my friends or family, and mandatory masks, we all remember that. It allowed me to mask my physical symptoms like the moon face, and allowed me to mask my emotions. And I remember finally opening up to people that I cared about. Like after 1 year of hiding, I was like, hey, like I have this. And they're like, what? You look healthy to me. Like, even though I physically don't look unwell, it's because I'm just probably just locked in my room, or I'm just facing it all on my own. And I think that's okay. People can just sort of figure out what they're going through on their own. But it finally took my year to finally open up, and they didn't really understand the depth of my suffering. I guess it kind of makes sense, because on my Instagram I would glamorize all the positive aspects of my life, because that's what made me me. So I didn't want to show off my illness. I wanted to show off what I did. And I just posted when I was physically at my best. I didn't post anything, and I didn't show the pain that I felt within. And then through that, it's sort of brain fog. Through that, no one really knew what was going on, because they would just see me performing in Houston theater. They would see me being chosen to participate in the biggest outdoor youth festival in Hong Kong. They would see me organizing African drumming. They would see me choreographing culture evening shows in Lipo Chen. They would only see that because I wanted to show them that that was me. Like, that's me, not my illness. That's me only. Is it worth it to have a short amount of dopamine for prolonged periods of pain where I would get like anxiety attacks, overwhelmed, fatigue, especially when I was doing like physical events? And then I was like, yes, it's worth it, because even though I was suffering, I was allowed to share kindness. And through these events, I saw people laugh, I saw people smile, and that's what's important. And when I started to when I started to accept my emotions, I found this new sense of purpose. I fused my passion of content creation to raise awareness and to also show people who are struggling the same way that you're not alone. You are not alone in this. And to this, I kind of fused my struggles and empowered them through content creation. And I also posted videos on other ideas as well, like transition videos, food videos, because I don't want to define myself as my chronic illness. I post about my chronic illness, and I also post what makes me me. And after some time, while I got diagnosed, I fused them together, and I found it was really beautiful because other people started commenting, explaining how I helped them and they come to talk to me, and it really gave me a sense of purpose because even when I was suffering, I was still helping people out. That to me is just the greatest gift in the world. And I salute to everyone who is silently struggling with either mental issues or physical issues and still going on their days, smiling, brightening other people's days. I salute to you. Not many people can do that, and you are strong at that. I know that I am diagnosed with lupus, but I am so grateful for my friends and family who make life a lot more tolerable. I know I have lupus, but I know it's incurable and it's unpredictable, but I'm trying my best to push through. I know I have to go to the public hospital every few months, but it's better than staying there. I know that I have to take 15 pills a day, but it's better than the initial 18 pills a day with high dosages of prednisone that made my face swell up. And I know that I'm young, but I'm a lupus warrior and I'm fighting for the life that I deserve. And I know that you are strong individuals who can be battling with struggles that no one can comprehend, but you are strong and you are so much more than your weaknesses and your struggles. You will live lives of happiness because that's the life that we deserve.